Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making Cowboy Cookies. These are a favourite American cookie by all accounts, and I watched several videos and looked at various recipes on how to make them, and they all seem to be pretty similar. I think the size of the cookies varied from recipe to recipe and video to video, but I think that's a personal preference. But they all seem to have coconut, oats, pecans, sometimes walnuts, and chocolate chips in them. And when they come out of the oven, they're very, very soft, and then they firm up around the outside, but they remain chewy. And they're quite simple to make. So I've started off by preheating my oven to 180 degrees Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, and I've got a couple of baking trays which I've lined with parchment paper. I may have to bake them in batches because I can't put too many cookies on each baking tray. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the cookie dough I have 175 grams, which is 1 cup plus 2.5 tablespoons of plain flour, again based on scooping packed flour into a cup. I have 300 grams, which is 1.5 cups of soft light brown sugar. You could use a combination of light brown sugar and granulated sugar if you wanted to. I have 170 grams, 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter which I've melted. And then I have 1 medium egg, which would be large in the USA. A teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, a pinch of salt, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then to mix into the cookie dough, I have 110 grams, which is 1.25 cups of rolled oats, and I'm using old-fashioned rolled oats. I have 1 cup of pecans, which is 100 grams, which I have chopped into small pieces. Some are larger than others, but fairly small pieces. I have 130 grams, 2/3 of a cup of dark chocolate chips. I'm using 51% cocoa semi-sweet chocolate. And I have 1 cup, 75 grams of shredded coconut. You could use desiccated coconut if you wanted to. So that's all the ingredients, and I'm going to use a large bowl to mix this together, and I'm going to start off with the butter and the sugar. And I'm going to do this with my hand mixer, but you could do it by hand, it just takes more effort. So I'll put my butter into the bowl, and then the sugar as well, and I'm going to mix those together. So then I'm going to add in my vanilla extract and my egg, and I'm going to mix those until they're fully combined into the sugar and butter. So that's mixed quite nicely. And then I'm going to add in my flour, but first of all I'm going to put the baking powder, the baking soda and the salt into the flour, and just give that a bit of a stir around to get it combined. And I'm going to mix that flour into the wet mixture. So I've mixed that in, and I did that on a slow speed because I don't want gluten to form with the flour. And then I'm just simply going to have to add the other ingredients, which is going to make quite a stiff batter. And I'm going to mix those in by hand. They wouldn't work with the stand mixer, with a hand mixer at all. So I'll just scrape the flour off the edge of the bowl, stir that in, and then add the other ingredients, the chocolate chips, the oats, pecans, and the shredded coconut. And I'm going to stir those around until everything is combined and coated. And so with that mixed in, it's simply a question of putting that onto our baking trays and baking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an ice cream scoop which holds 60 millilitres, a quarter of a cup, and I'm going to scoop that and level it and simply put that onto my parchment paper like that, and I'm going to do 4 on each baking tray. And I've left a good gap between each of them. So with 8 on the baking trays like that, I'm going to put those into the oven, and I'm going to bake them for between 15 and 17 minutes, and they will spread out. You could flatten these a little bit if you wanted to before you put them in the oven, but they will spread out and they will cook, and they will, as I say, when they come out of the oven they will still be very soft, so leave them for at least 5 minutes on the baking trays before you transfer them carefully to a wire rack to cool down. And once I've baked these 8, I will do the remainder as well, and then once they've all cooled down I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the Cowboy cookies for 16 minutes. I took them out of the oven and left them on the baking trays for 5 minutes, then transferred them to a wire rack to cool down completely. And this is what they look like. They've baked quite nicely, and they're crisp on the outside, but they still retain a chewiness. As you can see, I've bent that in half, and it takes some time to break off. So I'll have a little taste. It has a wonderful chewy texture and a slight caramelly flavour because of the brown sugar. Then I get the hit of the chocolate chips as well, and the crunchiness of the nuts. And I can taste, I don't taste oats, but I know they're in there. But I can taste just a little bit of the coconut, and I also get the texture of the coconut. So these are really very good cookies. They're rather large, so I think you need to limit yourself to one at a time rather than eating 2 or 3 in a single session. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to this recipe, and I'll put a link for it below the video. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future, so until then, happy baking.